Yesterday, we peeled back the first layer, Marc on a mission, dismantling Pecco's ego piece by piece. But that was just the opening shot. Today, we dive deeper into the marrow of what Dovizioso really said and why his words sting harder than any lap time. This isn't just about a fast bike or a clever line. This is about Ducati turning Marc into a weapon, a living war machine built to erase rivals, not just on track, but in their own heads. Part 2 isn't the continuation of a story, it's the escalation. The forest has one predator and the kill is only getting bloodier. Now hear this. Marc's domination doesn't soften the field's talent. These are gifted drivers. They're fast, committed, and fearless. But talent without marrow is decoration. You can have a meticulous season, you can pump your machines full of telemetry and data scientists, but when the predator re-enters the habitat, you discover the emptiness in your soul's engine. Marc didn't invent speed, he invented relentless answerability. He makes you be better than you thought you could, and when you can't, he rearranges the rules so the only playable game is the one he dictates. The rest of the riders? They are playing catch-up in a race where catching up is an act of desperation. Let's go national for a second. Italians love poetics. They love saviors. Pecco was built from that narrative engine. Charisma, youth, Ducati's investment. The Italian press made him a myth, and when myths are made, they become fragile sculptures. The problem with fragile sculptures is that the first real hammer doesn't just crack them, it pulverizes them into an identity dust. Marc is that hammer. He walked into Ducati's cathedral and started a different sermon, one about corner speed that sears the retina and lines that leave no margin for a second chance. Bagnaia's home track comfort? Gone. His sponsors? Nervous. His belief? Eroded. Dovi, watching this, wrote what he wrote because he's seen the slow, traumatic erosion of a rider's self under that pressure. He's warning the public that this isn't a season, it's a psychological reclamation mission. Now, don't mistake the tone here for schadenfreude. This is raw observation. I'm not celebrating another man's fall. I'm documenting hunger. You can appreciate the cruelty of the process and still sympathize, but the world doesn't care for feelings on race day. It cares for results. Results turn hearts cold. Results decide careers. Results make the tabloids write apologies for kings they crowned too early. Marc's method is straightforward and terrifying. Push the limit. Crash if necessary. Return. Repeat with bigger margins. Break your rhythm, then exploit the repair. He doesn't respect the safe zone. He fucks the safe zone. That's dangerous to ride against, because the safe zone is the scaffolding of everyone else's confidence. When he finds a weakness, mechanical, psychological, tactical, he converts it into a lesson that is broadcast live. The grid learns, or it collapses. Bagnaia learned the hard way. He crashed into a season of mistakes that weren't always mechanical. They were the byproduct of a mind under siege. Remember the little things that matter. What happens behind the scenes? Team meetings that used to be pep talks become therapy sessions. Engineers start second-guessing radical ideas because Marc didn't make something that felt familiar. He made something that won. Bagnaia sees telemetry that once read like his scripture now resemble a foreign language. The bikes respond differently to his throttle input when Marc is the reference. That sounds petty. It isn't. Perception is the first casualty in high-performance conflict. Once you lose belief that the machine is listening to you, you lose instinct. And once you lose instinct, you race like someone reading sheet music. The music is dead. People will point to the numbers. They'll say it's 11 GPS, 14 sprints, 16 rounds, an absurd tally. They'll trot out the cold math, 182-point lead, needing a 185-point cushion to clinch in Motegi. I'll tell you how this reads in the locker room. It reads like inevitability. It reads like the forest accepting a new alpha. There's a cruelty in inevitability because it doesn't always come from force. Sometimes it comes from repetitive excellence, from being right more often than wrong in those tiny, fatal decisions that add up across a season. Marc's season is an accumulation of those microscopic dominations. He occupies corners the way a conqueror occupies cities. Methodically, then permanently. And here's the final slash. This doesn't just steal one rider's season. It steals an entire storyline. Fans who promised themselves a renaissance for Ducati's Italian face now swallow a bitter truth. The renaissance was interrupted by a force bigger than the narrative. The Rossi nostalgia brigade, those who traded yellow for every romantic possibility, find themselves with a new hero. A man who doesn't sell drama. He manufactures silence. The media will scramble. Pundits will call it the new era, and then argue about whether it was the bike or the rider. They'll write think pieces about how MotoGP's balance of power shifted in 2025. But the podiums will tell the real story. The cameras will keep rolling, and Marquez will keep looking like the only man who came prepared for war. In the night before Motegi, when the air smells like coolant and distant sushi grills, riders will prepare with prayer and physiotherapy and telemetry. They'll try to convince themselves the title is salvageable. They'll sleep in cars and damp hotels, practice starts under fluorescent lights, and still the math will stare them down. Because Marc is not just racing other riders, he's racing the idea that someone else could be him. He's racing history, and he's winning. He's not content with a single trophy. He's reshaping the ledger so future kids will look at the numbers and think, this is what the bar looks like now. That kind of victory is more than domination. It's obliteration without blood in the headlines. This is the sermon that will make them choke. Marcus doesn't need your tears to taste victory, but he'll drink them if you offer. In the garage, after the engines cool and the lights dim, he'll sit with the ghost of his injuries and laugh at the irony that what tried to end him brought him back sharper. The men who raced him from 2015 to 2019 thought they'd seen the worst. They hadn't. That was a preface. This is the thesis. Dovi's warning, devastating, is an admission from a veteran. The damage isn't external. It's an internal collapse that leaves no repair shop big enough to fix a broken certainty. In the end, there will be one king in the forest. He will not ask for allegiance. He will command it through the sound of his bike and the space he carves through the air. Some will bow willingly. Some will be forced. Others will still scream into the wind and call it injustice. They will find, in the cold hard math of the championship, that justice is only a construct when you lose. Winning is the only truth that matters in this game. So let the haters cry. Let the journalists change their headlines. Let Rossi's nostalgia be a map with one route: memory. Let Bagnaia stare at a future he no longer recognizes and decide whether he rebuilds or fades. The rest of the field will have to come to grips with a man who makes the margins fold in on themselves. If you want a face for domination, it sits behind a visor that has known steel, titanium, and surgery, yet keeps smiling with the sort of quiet that says, "I was always coming back." Mark these words. In a week, Motegi will not be a coronation framed by a hero's return. It will be a confession from the entire grid that someone else has rewritten the rules while they clapped. When the numbers settle, when the printers stop, when the social feeds cool, there will still be the same raw fact. Marc Marquez, master of returns, tyrant of corners, architect of collapsed egos, will have made his mark. Andrea Dovizioso saw it early. He knows the anatomy of a man's destruction and the peculiar artistry in watching someone else perfect it. He spoke the word devastating because devastation is precise. It's surgical. It leaves no room for half measures. So here's the last line, blunt and clean. The forest has one king now. You either kneel or you get crushed. Either way, you breathe less loudly when he passes. And that, if you want the truth with no mercy, is the purest kind of domination there is.